Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast from Mobile, Alabama, in my room at an Airbnb in downtown Mobile, in his hotel room somewhere closer to the stadium. It's Fran Duffy from PhiladelphiaEagles.com joining us for his maiden appearance on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Fran, how are you?
Bo, I'm doing great. It couldn't be better. We're in Mobile, Alabama, one of our favorite places to visit on an almost yearly basis, and it's beautiful weather outside. It couldn't get any better.
This is the nicest weather I can
Yes.
remember, and like to a detrimental degree. And like everybody was walking around today with a burned face. I had to buy a hat today because I didn't want to get
Okay.
a
Yep.
second burn on the top of my scalp. Like you take a shower and you find out where all of your bald spots are.
Yeah, it was, and you never know what to expect because you and I, we've been down here where, like, in between practices, people were racing to the local department store to buy like winter hats and mittens, and we've been here obviously like during torrential downpours where things get moved inside. We've seen tornado watches and tornado warnings. I know that was my first trip here, but today, I mean, it's the last 2 days. It's been mid 60s, sunny, not a cloud in the sky. It's going to be the same thing tomorrow. It's beautiful.
Now, in terms of the view, there are some longtime sickos who will be wondering if we're going to get a pan down to the thigh for this episode, but for now, it's just upper chest and face.
You did bring up the fact that been wearing shorts all week, and yes, once I saw the weather report, I said, yeah, I'm going to embrace the fact that I'm going to wear shorts. So the eagle fly in the sky lives.
Okay, we got a lot to get to. This may take a while, so we might as well jump right in. Now, Zach, of course, has been paying attention to all these guys. He's a college football sicko, as you are, to maybe even a more extreme degree. But for me, the Senior Bowl is like the introduction to draft season. I think there are a lot of Eagles fans who are similarly aligned. And this is our Senior Bowl Quacketology, Senior Owl Quacketology for the old timers. And what we're going to do, we're going to have 64 players who are here in Mobile, and we are going to whittle it down to the most likely player to be drafted by the Eagles in the spring. Now, what we're saying here is I'm going to give you a player and a round. So you're going to try to match what's going to be appropriate value, and if there are ties to break, then we can talk about, fit for the Eagles potentially. The Eagles, we expect, have the 22nd overall pick in the first round, 2 second-round picks, a projected third-round compensatory pick, and then 4 picks in the 5th round. So there are going to be a lot of round 5 matches here to come. But if you're ready, Fran, I'm ready to hop right in.
Born ready. The moment you said we were doing Quacketology, I said, are we doing a field of 32 or 64? And I'm glad that you said 64. So we're going to break it down here.
All right, let's start it off. The first player, the number 1 overall selection here. What I did, and I got to 64, and I randomized it. So these are all randomized matchups. There's no chicanery of getting Rick Pitino against his former Louisville team here from the corrupt selection committee. This is all by the books. So we've got Alabama edge, Chris Braswell in the 2nd round.
Okay.
Or Miami safety, Cameron Kitchens in round 3.
I do think that Kitchens is more likely to go ahead of that point. So I think that Braswell going in the 2nd round. I think that Braswell has a pretty good chance at the 2nd round. He is a 1st-round caliber athlete. Only a couple starts to his resume. Was still, even this year as a redshirt junior, came off the bench for most of this year. So I do think that the small sample size may ding him a little bit. We haven't really seen a player like that come off the board in the 1st round as a pass rusher. And so I'm going to say that is probably more likely in round 2 than Cam Kitchens in round 3. I think when you look at Cam Kitchens from Miami, this was a former 4-star recruit, 3-year starter for the Hurricanes. Really explosive athlete and a violent hitter downhill, has all the tools you're looking for to be an every down safety. I would say one knock that I've seen on the film that I've watched, his angles can be a little bit better playing downhill and sideline to sideline. That is something that can be, some guys are able to correct and some guys are not able to get over. He's got outstanding physical tools though. And so, I've seen he's in a lot of round 1 mock drafts. When you look around, I don't think he'll go 1st round would be my guess. But I do think that that's a very talented player, likely not on the board round 3. I would be surprised if he went off the board in the 3rd
trade here as well, theoretically for the Eagles. Tell me if you agree with this, Fran. I was talking about this in the stands. We are the same age, right? In your mind, do you have sort of a romantic hope and connection? Don't scout the helmet, but a Miami defensive player, doesn't that just sort of give you a little bit of a tingle? It does for me.
I mean, look, you know much more about the story, the Miami program. We know that lyrics to songs, from that program, from years past. But
I mean, look at Greg Olsen now.
I was actually having this conversation at dinner last night, ironically enough, too, about Miami and Florida State and like that rivalry when Miami was hitting on all cylinders. And clearly, the program has not been to that level. I do think Mario Cristobal is a possibility in terms of a coach to kind of uplift that program. We've seen Steve Sarkisian do that at Texas and get them back on the national radar. I'm hoping that they're able to do that down in Miami.
Okay. I like that. Now, Kitchens, we should say, obviously, a new defensive coordinator for the Eagles. There's some debate about, what's going to be more of a priority for overhauling the personnel. Is it going to be linebacker or safety in this Vic Fangio defense? We know that Sidney Brown is coming off a torn ACL. You've got Reed Blankenship, who looks like a good player, but has had some injury issues. Certainly, they're going to need to add somebody there. And obviously, we know that they will have to add somebody at linebacker. Is this supposed to be a good safety draft if we're talking about a day 2 safety?
I think when you look at the group overall, it's a pretty talented group. I wouldn't say that, there's no one, it was a couple of years ago when Kyle Hamilton was seen as, a lock for the top 15, a potential top 10 pick. I don't think you're looking at any of these players in that vein. Cam Kinchens, I think, is arguably the best safety here in attendance. I would put Cole Bishop from Utah right there in that discussion. There are a couple of players that aren't here that I think, would warrant even potential first round possibilities. Tyler Nubin from Minnesota is a senior, a 5th-year guy that I was a big fan of when I did his film over the summer, looking back at last year. And he is not here in Mobile, but he is a guy that would not shock me if he went in the top, 35, 40 picks. And then after that, it's really going to come down to like flavor. It depends on what you're looking for. I think Nubin is one of those guys that is really kind of scheme diverse. But you look at Kinchens, kind of a pure free safety type. Jaden Hicks, who was initially going to be here from Washington State, he was going to be here and he pulled out late, I believe, due to an ankle injury. But he's a big safety. He's more like the prototypical strong safety now in today's league. And you go right down the line, there's a bunch of guys that kind of fit those different archetypes, but aren't quite as scheme diverse. So it'll be kind of a beauty in the eye of the beholder. But it's a good group. I do kind of like the safety class.
Okay, we'll move on now to the next matchup. South Dakota State running back Isaiah Davis, who has had a couple little flashes over the past couple days, or ya boy, Southeast Missouri wide receiver Ryan Flournoy.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Isaiah, both in the 5th round.
Both in the 5th round. So, okay, I do like both players, both guys coming from lower levels of competition. Isaiah Davis, running back, he was one of the first acceptances to the Senior Bowl a couple of months ago. I like the way he plays. I compared him to James Conner in that he's a little bit of a bigger back.
6 foot 220.
There you go. Yep. So he's got that frame. He doesn't have a ton of juice. That's like the big knock. He's not like a breakaway runner at all. But he's kind of smooth, and everything he does is really natural. He catches the ball pretty well out of the backfield. We saw a little bit of that today, and I think he's got a decisive feel as a runner downhill. And so I do like Isaiah Davis. 5th round does feel about right to me, but in this running back class, I think there's going to be a lot of disparity in terms of how people see players, and it wouldn't shock me if he did get drafted a little bit earlier than that, maybe even in the 4th round. And so I think I'm going to go with Flournoy. I believe it's Flournoy from Southeast Missouri, right?
Yes.
And I think when you look at, I actually studied him last week because he was a late addition to this game, and I was excited to get into him because I knew he was a former Bruce Feldman Freakless guy over at the Athletic, and so I knew he's a big body guy, so I was excited to dig into his film. 6'1", 200 pounds. This kid can run. He was reported 4.35 by Bruce Feldman. A lot of the other test scores are really, really impressive. The shuttle times, the jumps through the roof would be, in the 80th, 90th, 95th percentile across the board in a lot of those numbers. And so when you look at a guy with that size, with those athletic measurements, okay, do they show up? And I do think in spurts that they do show up on tape. But what stands out to me more, he's a great blocker and he's really, really tough. And the reason why I think that matters for a kid like this is that he's not a polished player right now, and we've seen that. He's not like a great technician as a route runner, but if you're big and fast and tough, he's going to get drafted and he's going to play special teams early in his career. It's like that Mac Hollins like archetype as a like early on in your career. And so I do think that when you get into
going with Mac Hollins and not Riley Cooper
class, I do think that he can make it. So I think that Flournoy in the 5th round makes more sense. I think Davis could go a little bit earlier.
Okay. Good job using Mac Hollins and not Riley Cooper as the comp for that type of player as a 5th round pick.
Sure.
Next up, we've got Notre Dame by way of Wake Forest quarterback Sam Hartman in round 5.
Hashtag go
or
Deeps.
Another ya boy, Oregon defensive lineman Brandon Dorless in round 3.
All right, so Hartman is going to be tough. He's played a lot of football, and I think that experience will carry him a long way. 4-year starter at Wake Forest, then goes to Notre Dame, starts that 5th year last year with the Irish. We've seen some flashes of him here. Not the most gifted quarterback in terms of like arm strength, and he's not like a power thrower. But
now I will say, just to step in for Zach, handsome young man.
Of course, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I know that Zach, that's one of his foibles is his inability to do that. But yes. I do think when you look at Sam Hartman, he is a he knows how to operate the game, right? He's played a lot of ball. You're not going to fool him with a lot of the stuff that you're showing him, and that does show up on film. I think when you look at Dorless, I think he could go earlier than that. Okay. He's a player. Look, I think you and I were talking about him this today when we did our play-by-play for the YouTube page. Check out and he had a really nice spin move for a win. And I made the comparison Dorless to Milton Williams. And I've been studying Dorless for 2-3 years now at Oregon. He's been on the radar for a while. And he is a true like DN, D-tackle hybrid player. He came in under 280 pounds. He's a great athlete. A lot of his best reps come on the inside, much like Milton. That's why there are some people that will list him as a D-end, and he even played mostly D-end this year at Oregon. But I think his future is on the inside, and I'm going back and forth. I think it is more likely he falls to round 3.
I'm going to go. Yeah, I will step in here and say it doesn't make sense to me for the Eagles to use a 5th round pick on a quarterback when they've got Tanner McKee. If you're going to, I'm willing to buy the Eagles adding a quarterback, but to me, if they're going to do that and take that swing, you're talking like a round 2, round 3 guy, which would be kind of wild, but feels a little duplicative with Tanner McKee.
Yeah, I'll let you get into the the Eagles-ification.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But I think that when you look at just like a grand scope, I could see Dorless falling only because of like the tweener label I think some will give him. I don't think that that's as big now as it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. But I'm a big fan of Brandon Dorless, so I'll go Dorless here.
Okay, next up we have the highly rated but injury-prone North Carolina State linebacker Peyton Wilson. We're seeing round 2 here. Maybe that is rich. Or Wisconsin offensive lineman and delicious dinner Tanner Bortolini in round 5.
In round 5. All right. So let's go. Let's start with Bortolini, who has had some moments. He's had some nice plays in pass rush 1-on-1, some nice stops there. But also, I think when you look at some of his downsides, that has shown up as well. I know you pointed out that he got hit with a bull rush yesterday, day 1 of practice that didn't go well. He got beat a couple times today in some of the reps that I saw. I do think he's solid. I think that day 3 is route right in terms of value. But then when I get to Peyton Wilson, here's what I'll say about Peyton Wilson. I think that if he had a perfectly clean bill of health, I think you're probably talking about him in the top 45 in the draft. Like, I think he is like that kind of player. He would have come out earlier in his career would be my guess as well. He's a 6th-year senior. He's a 6th-year senior, so he's a little bit older. But the big reason for that is that the last couple of years have kind of been marred by injury, as particularly the 2021 season was hit hard. And then he was kind of coming back in 2022, still played 11 games, but wasn't really fully healthy until he got to this year in 2023. And so to me, like, you watch Wilson, this is a guy that impacts the game in a lot of different ways. He can make plays in coverage. He's got great feel for playing in space. He can man up and he can play in zone. He can blitz. He's a great blitzer. He's a really aggressive run defender. The arm length, a little bit of a concern that came up this week from when he got measured here in Mobile on Sunday. But I think when you look at his overall athletic profile, you look at his instincts, you look at his toughness. Those are all things that I think translate really well. But The injuries that's going to be a big concern. Just the stuff that's been reported in the media. He missed spring drills in 2018. He missed the season in 2018 after a knee injury in the summer. He missed one game in 2019. He missed a couple games in 2020. And then he had two dislocated shoulders. He played through the year in 2020 with two dislocated shoulders, got surgery, missed all of spring ball, and then re-injured them in 2021. And so has not had anything major in the last 2 calendar years. But that's something that was an issue, right? So I think when you look at Wilson, I think his skill set screams NFL starter, but it's going to be the off-field stuff. If he were healthy, I think round 2 is where you're talking about with him, though. So I think with the medical stuff, probably more likely that a Bortolini goes in round 5 than a Wilson goes in round 2. Yeah. That said, I think whoever is taking him in round 3 in this scenario is going to feel pretty good. I think that's a nice dice roll to take on Wilson because I think the upside is certainly there. Turns
24 in April, and it should be said, looks eerily similar to Dallas Goedert.
I didn't think that when I saw him today, but you're absolutely right. It did not hit me off the top of my head, but he does have a very eerie resemblance to Dallas.
All right, congratulations to Bortolini. Moving on, Houston Christian edge Jalix Hunt, the former Cornell safety.
Cornell safety. So he played DB in the Ivy League and then transferred out and got moved to linebacker and pass rusher. He's a pass rusher this week.
How does that make a Cornell defensive line coach feel?
Well, that's what I reached out to said Cornell defensive line coach. He was like, well, he played safety for us. I was like, oh, all right. Well, you can't give me too much. He gave me a little bit. I mean, basically early in his career, Cornell, they just said, like, go find the football, just run and chase and find the football. And now as a pass rusher, he's actually had some moments. It hasn't always been pretty, but he had a couple nice rushes in one-on-ones today. He's got decent size. He's a linear guy, obviously as a safety playing edge rusher, but he's got some juice. He's got some athleticism. It would not shock me if he goes early day 3 in this draft. I don't even know where you've got the what's our round label here.
This is round 5 for Jalix Hunt or Minnesota tight end Brevin Spanford in round 5 as well. Spanford, a guy that you and I have talked about on the sideline, looks the part, big old tight end body, not the most electric athlete, but a guy who can block.
Yes. One of my favorite tight ends in the class, to be honest. He's a little bit older, but I think in terms of this is a guy who knows what he is. And that is one of the best blockers and maybe the best blocker at tight end in this draft. He takes that job very, very seriously.
Almost 6'7" and 267, big old fella. And he can move a little bit. It's just
he's not a complete stiff. Athleticism, that's not going to be his calling card. But this is a guy that I could envision, like, okay, for 4 straight years, he has like 8 catches a year, but he still gets like legit tight end 2 money because he is a plus blocker in the run.
And his quarterback really trusts him.
Right. Of course, as we know. No, but I think when you look at Spanford, I would say 5th round is like keep it on the fairway. And I think that there's some variance there with Jalix Hunt. Like I could see him go 4th round. A team falls in love. He goes to Indy next month and blows it up. Or he goes to Indy and he doesn't test as well. And it's like, all right, well, it's a transition to a new position coming from a low level of competition. Maybe he goes to round 6, round 7. So I want to go with Spanford here in round 5.
In classic Quacketology fashion, we are through 5 matchups, and it's been almost 20 minutes.
Yes.
Time for a matchup of safeties here, Fran. Oregon State's Keaton Oladapo in round 5, or Georgia and Philly guy Taliese Smith in round 3.
Ooh. So I like Taliese Smith a lot. I think he's a really good football player. Started his career, like as you mentioned, a Philly guy, went to West Virginia, played early on, and then transferred up to Georgia and got hurt basically right away. So missed a couple seasons there, and then was a backup 2 years ago, and then became a full-time starter for the Dogs this year in the slot. I thought he was really good. I thought his tape showed an NFL starter inside. So this is a guy that's instinctive. He's tough. I think he's quick enough. I didn't think the athleticism was a major concern, but that is a question that some have had with his upside is does he have the athleticism to be an every down nickel in the league? And so me personally, I don't have that concern. Round 3 might be to me, like, again, me personally, I see round 3 and I'm like, yeah, I like that for Taliese Smith. I don't know that he's universally viewed that way. And then to go back to the other safety, you said it was Oladapo, and I like an Oladapo. You said it was round 5?
Yeah.
I like Oladapo. But and that's right around the range where I think he could
nice smile off the board.
He's kind of like that prototypical strong safety type. I like the physicality. He showed up in coverage a couple times today. Actually had a PBU against Brevin Spanford, I remember, in the post-practice one-on-one sessions. I think it's probably more likely Oladapo goes in round 5, though. I think that's the more likely outcome, is that he ended up being a round 5 pick as opposed to Taliese Smith, who I like in round 3, but I don't know that everybody else does.
Okay. Next up, we have a big, strong, powerful man in round 2 as a possibility. Do the Eagles need another nose tackle type with maybe some pass rush upside? Texas's Tavondre Sweat in round 2, or California linebacker Jackson Sermon in round 5. Jackson Sermon doing a little bit of showboating today at practice, doing a little celebrating.
The latest addition to the Senior Bowl roster. He got added literally like the day we all showed up on Monday. Was a surprise because I did not know he was going to be down here.
He's been a little flashy.
Of Peter Sermon. I don't know if you remember the former Titans linebacker.
Yeah,
it's the son, I believe.
Okay.
I'm almost positive. I'm pretty sure it's. I'm going to do this just to make sure. Jackson Sermon, yeah.
Zach Berman checking in on the chat. Very happy to hear about a Philly guy.
Is that a super chat from ZB or what? There we go. Philly guys, all you need to say. But to me, Sermon in round 5 might be a little rich. And now this linebacker class, I think there's a lot to be decided there, but I think that might be a little rich. So I'm going to go away from Sermon here.
Okay. Next up, the other Georgia safety who is here, Javon Bullard in round 2, or a bit of a speed threat, a guy who has made a few deep plays this week, Tulane wide receiver Jaquan Jackson in round 5.
I'm going to say Bullard in round 2. Bullard came in a little bit undersized this week, a little bit smaller than people thought. And that would make you think, okay, well, he's got to be a nickel as opposed to like a pure safety. But the problem is that Taliese Smith was the nickel this year for Georgia. And so now you're projecting. And so, I think he'll probably need someone to really fall for him to make it into round 2. That said, I think he has a better chance of going that high than Jackson does of going around 5. Jackson's actually had a good week, though. He has outperformed my expectation, I would say. He's done a nice job this week. He's made some tough catches going to the ground. I'm gonna be honest. The American practices have been a little bit of a slog to get through, but he has been a bright spot for that passing game.
It's wild. I mean, it's crazy how unproductive those practices have been.
A little slow, a little tempered. It will say going over and watching the O-line, D-line with that group today made it seem a little bit faster because they're bringing the juice over there. There's a lot of violence, a lot of collisions over there. But when you're watching the offense work and team and the 7-on-7, it's a grind.
Okay, congratulations to Bullard. Next up, we've got before we move on, we got a super chat from Gavin who says he's given 200 pennies to say what's up to my guy Z Berm. What's up, Z Berm? On behalf of Gavin. The other Davis running back who is here, Kentucky's Ray Davis in round 5, or one of the highest rated players here, Oregon State tackle Taliese Fuaga in round 1 at 22 overall.
Fuaga's going round 1 for sure. He's a round 1 guy. Ray Davis said round 5. Temple made, by the way. Started his first couple years with Temple and then transferred to Vanderbilt. Spent 2 years down there with the Commodores and then transferred again for Kentucky this year and had his best season in college. So a fifth-year guy, excels at making people miss. A tough, physical, instinctive runner. Doesn't have a ton of breakaway juice, but I think there's something there. And anyone that watched the SEC this year, Davis was one of the more productive players in the league this year in that conference. That said, Fuaga is a lock first-round pick. So he is a rock-steady offensive lineman. I know Daniel Jeremiah had him top 10. Yeah, that's right. Francis is obsessed with turtles right now. So that was
is he?
He's completely obsessed with turtles and Super Mario. That's
who's his favorite turtle?
What's that?
Who's his favorite?
Leonardo, because he's the leader. So
nice.
A sign of where his archetype is. But
that's good because I was obviously a Raphael guy because I'm a sarcastic a-hole, and look who I grew out to be.
I was a Raphael guy as well. Yeah. But I think when you look at Fuaga, he is not. This offensive tackle class is outstanding. It's a really, really, really good group, and I think once you kind of hash it out, you talk basically, if you poll 100 people who have watched them, you're going to get all kinds of different orders for the top 4, 5, 6, 7 guys. And some people are going to have Fuaga at 3. Some people are going to have Fuaga at 7. Some people are going to have him at 5. But everybody kind of agrees like this guy is going to be a long-time NFL starter.
All right. Next up, we've got UConn offensive lineman Christian Haynes in round 5. Or here's the guy, the tight end here who I think I have liked the most, just the way he moves. Kansas State's Ben Sinnott in round 5.
I believe it is Sinnott.
Reed Sinnott.
All right. I think it's more likely Sinnott goes in round 5. I think Christian Haynes is like round 2, round 3.
Really?
Yeah, he's a really good player. He's a really athletic. He's only played right guard, and that's probably the biggest concern. Not concern, but that would be the biggest knock that I would have.
6'2.5", 318 for Christian.
Yes, but he's got long arms, and he's got some power to him. He's athletic. He's really tough. He's looked good in pass pro this week. He's
small
he's a
hands
smart player. What's that?
Long arms, small hands. Interesting match.
Yes, one of those guys. But I was really impressed watching him on film. I was excited to see him in person this week, and he had a really good week. I know talking with O-line guru himself, Brandon Thorne, was impressed with Christian Haynes over the last couple of days. So I would say Haynes going in round 5 is probably not going to happen. So I'd have to go the opposite way there.
Okay. Next up, Western Michigan edge Marshawn Kneeland in round 5, or Auburn safety Jalen Simpson in round 3.
This is a good one. I think both of them are right in the correct wheelhouse. Marshawn Kneeland is going to be a guy that I think a lot of scouts are going to like, and a lot of coaches are going to like, because he's really long, he's really disruptive. He was really productive in the MAC for a long time. He's got an excellent motor. You see that physicality show up here in the practice field. He's got some athletic limitations. He's got length, but the explosiveness, the twitch, just not quite there. But I do think he'll be one of those like coach's pet types in terms of his play style. Even there was a play where he got knocked on the ground. I want to say it might have been Fuaga that knocked him over. And Fuaga went to go knock him up, and Kneeland like swatted his hand away. I was like, get out of here. Like he's got like that kind of play personality. I think it's more likely he goes in round 5 than Simpson goes in round 3. And I like Simpson. He's like a pure free safety, really explosive, really rangy. He's made some nice plays on the ball. He's jumped some routes in team and in one-on-ones so far this week. A converted corner. He's really light though. He's under 170 pounds at safety, like extremely, extremely light. So that could be a thing that would bump him to day 3 of the draft. And so I will go with, I think I'm going to go with Marshawn Kneeland in round 5.
Okay. Now you said that those were in their wheelhouses, Fran. You just teed me up because
I've listened to the show plenty
about Wheelhouse, because they are our go-to sports card gift and apparel shop in the Delaware Valley. Their motto is cards and community, because love of sports unites us all. They carry all of your favorite card brands like Topps Chrome Baseball and Mosaic Football, as well as t-shirts, hats, and hoodies from brands like Mitchell & Ness 47 brand, Junk Food Starter, and Zach's favorite, Shibe Vintage Sports. Looking to grade your sports card collection? Well, Wheelhouse offers PSA grading submissions. They also host tons of different family-friendly events and birthday parties every month. Stop in to either of their stores in Wayne or Westchester. Open 7 days a week at 11 a.m. Use code PHLY and get $10 off any purchase of $25 or more in store. Also, be sure to give them a follow on Instagram at Wheelhouse Cards. And one way to get money to spend on cards is to save money at Rocket Money, because Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills. I can see all of my subscriptions in one place, and if I see something I don't want anymore, I can cancel it with a tap, and I never have to get on the phone to deal with customer service. Nobody likes talking to people, except for Zach. They will even try to get you a refund for the last couple of months of wasted money, to negotiate and lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year, with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/PHLY. That's rocketmoney.com/PHLY, rocketmoney.com/PHLY. All right, behind schedule as usual. about the halfway point, and we are far from the halfway point. Fran,
we'll try and go faster. Hey, by the way, if Quinyon Mitchell is not the next one, it's poor segue from you. A Toledo Rocket coming off the Rocket money read.
That's pretty good, but I can't argue with the randomizer.
Yes,
I cannot play a role. It has to be fair. So instead, we've got just a big old man. You want to save a lot of money? You get a big man. Kentucky's offensive lineman, Jeremy Flax, 6'5", 360. He goes, this is a round 3 option. Or Jerry Rice's son, USC wide receiver Brendan Rice in round 5.
I'm going to go Brendan Rice round 5. He's a little bit stiff. He's not super explosive. He makes some nice plays through contact. He's got pretty reliable hands. I think he is more likely to go round 5 than Flax, who was a late addition to the Senior Bowl. Him going round 3, especially in this tackle class, I think would be a surprise.
Okay. That was an easy one. Good job.
That was an easy one. Yeah.
Okay. Georgia wide receiver Ladd McConkey in round 3.
All right.
Or Duke defensive tackle Dwayne Carter in round 3. A couple of round 3 face-offs here.
This is a good.
Dwayne Carter we talked about on the one-on-ones. Had like one of the most impressive reps of the week on Tuesday, but I don't know. Does he have enough upside as a pass rusher?
Right.
Who knows?
That's the concern. 3-year captain for Duke. So the intangibles
like
seem
Steve
to be
Wojciechowski.
there. Yeah. The intangibles certainly seem to be there with him. I think when you look at McConkey, he kind of gets pigeonholed as a slot only guy. I think that he's more than that. He's one of the best route runners in the class. He's got really good hands. I'm interested to see how he tests next year or next month in the combine. I think he's going to test a little bit better than people think with the vertical speed. And if that happens, if he goes 4.46, 4.48. I think that he could go in the second round, especially when you factor in the entire package. So I'm going to say Dwayne Carter, round 3. I think that feels right for Carter and McConkey. I think there could be some variance there.
Okay. Next up, we've got Florida State defensive tackle Braden Fiskey, Frisky Fiskey in round 3, or the guy who had one of the most impressive practices of the day, just completely dominated and wrecked a session. And that is Kansas's edge, Austin Booker, in round 3.
Interesting body types here. Fiskey is a really sought-off defensive tackle. Started his career in the MAC and was extremely productive at Western Michigan with Neyland, and then transferred down to Florida State and kept that production going. Was an All-American this year for Florida State. Was one of the best players on that defense. Really short arms, but extremely high effort, good first step, uses his hands well, really disruptive against the run and the pass. Round 3 feels about right. He's going to be another one of those guys that I think people fall in love with from a coaching standpoint, his play personality. And then you said the other one was
Austin Booker.
Austin Booker in 3rd round. So the reason why his body type is a little unique, he's 6'4.5". He's 240 pounds. He's extremely lean. He is like a beanpole the way he is built. So I think there's going to be questions in terms of how much more weight can he put on? Has not played a lot of ball at all. He's a redshirt sophomore who only played this year. I think I said to you on the stream today that he has played less snaps than any edge rusher drafted in the last decade, at least the ones that PFF has charted. And so you're talking about a small sample size with kind of a unique body type. Him going round 3 without having the superb production would be a little bit surprising to me. So I will go with physical Fiskey, Frisky Fiskey there in round 3.
If it's Fiskey, then it's risky.
There we go.
All right. Next up, we have they have the monitoring of the guys, and this is the player who on day 1 was the fastest player on the field according to the tracking, and that is North Carolina wide receiver Devontae Walker. We're talking about him in round 5 here, or arguably the best player here, Oklahoma tackle Tyler Guyton in round 1. And I'd like to use this opportunity to apologize to Julia because I requested Guyton to be the picture on the episode today, except I wrote Jalen Guyton, and she's like, "Who is Jalen Guyton?" She knew she was doing this. I got nothing on Jalen Guyton, no, Tyler Guyton. So, thank you, Julia.
There we go. Chargers wide receiver.
That's
Guyton.
right.
I think Trevor Guyton round 1 is the safer bet. Now, Tez Walker started his career at Kansas State, was productive, transferred to North Carolina this year, and actually had to sit out the first half of the year because there was like weird things with the NCAA trying to get him, able to play. So missed the first few games, but he's a big body vertical threat. Daniel Jeremiah had him in his mock draft, in his first mock draft 1.0 last week, and then was in his top 50 that dropped the other day.
Really?
I think you would say that's surprising. I can see on your face that that's surprising, and I would agree. I don't necessarily view him as that kind of a player, but you look at big play potential at that size. I mean, there's going to be fans for him around the league, and so
it's like last year. Was it? No, it was 2 years ago when Jeremiah's top 50 came out, and he had what's his name? The Cowboys wide receiver from the small school. The
South Alabama kid.
Yes, and I was like, what?
Yes,
but then he ended up going, I think, the third round. So
yeah, I would be surprised if he fell all the way to round 5, Tez Walker.
Okay,
so, and Guyton at first round like all day.
Okay,
yeah. So that one makes sense.
All right, another first round all day guy most likely, and that is Oregon's Jackson Powers Johnson, your boy, or Arizona running back rather Michael Wiley in round 5.
Powers Johnson, round 1 all day. The only knock you would say is the sample size. He's only a 1-year starter, but check every box you want in a center interior offensive line because he's done it at guard as well this week and as a backup earlier in his career. But he is outstanding, and we can talk about him a little bit. But he's been arguably the most impressive player here this week. If you came in blind this week and all right, who's the best player? Powers Johnson has checked every box you would want from an offensive lineman.
Okay. Next up, we've got, this is a rhyming matchup. Nice job by the randomizer here. Houston tackle Patrick Paul, who has the longest arms on his team. He is 6'7", 333 with over 36-inch arms.
Okay.
Or Baylor defensive lineman Gabe Hall in round 2. So we've got Paul versus Hall.
And you said Paul round 3?
Paul round 3.
Hall round
2.
I think it's probably more likely that those are flipped. So this is a tough one because I think that this will probably be a round 2 exit for either one of these, whoever does advance. I think it's probably more likely that Patrick Paul were to fall to round 3 than to Gabe Hall to advance to round 2. Gabe Hall, the Baylor defensive lineman, was a freak list guy at Baylor. Has been a 3 or 4 year player for them. He is built like a Charles Omenihu, kind of like a D-tackle, D-end hybrid. He's really athletic. He makes plays against the run and the pass. He's flashed this week, but his film is a little up and down. I think with Patrick Paul, he was in first-round mock drafts and still is at times.
Is it Patrick Paul or Paul Patrick?
It is Patrick Paul, and his brother, Washington offensive lineman Chris Paul. So there's.
I went to school with Chris Paul.
The other Chris Paul, yes. Go Deeks. I think when you look at Patrick Paul, he probably goes round 2. So I'm going to go. Let's say Patrick Paul because I think there's a better chance of him going round 3 than Gabe Hall elevating all the way up to round 2.
Okay. Next up, a guy that we paid some attention to today, Washington's Roger Rosengarten in round 3.
Okay.
We're talking about not Henry Rowengartner, but Roger Rosengarten, or Tulane quarterback Michael Pratt in round 5.
I think it's probably more likely Pratt in round 5. Rosengartner's got some fans all around the league. He's a little bit inconsistent with the level of play. And I know there were some that thought he should have gone back this past year. Obviously, there's been a lot of turnover at Washington, both on the field and on the sideline. So it makes sense as to why he would come out. But I think when you look at Michael Pratt, he is a very intriguing player. Homeschooled through 8th grade, did not play organized football until 9th grade, until high school.
Hold on. Homeschooled through 8th grade?
Homeschooled through 8th grade.
I mean, I got to do a lot of homework on that in this scouting process.
And I think that's fair. And it's especially, there's always stories every year of prospect X didn't play football until 9th grade, 10th grade. It's rare that happens with a quarterback. It's very rare that you talk about a quarterback prospect who did not play, until now. That said, he was a 4-year starter at Tulane. That's actually really impressive that he'd only played football for a couple of years and then got a D1 scholarship and then started as a freshman and then went on to be, he had to be the winningest quarterback in program history. Did an outstanding job the last couple of years. He is a high variance player. really good touch thrower. He's really athletic and he's really tough. And that toughness shows up in the pocket. The toughness shows up as a runner. He's a fun player to watch. But unpolished player, and a little bit of raw player still, understandably so. So I think that he could fall to round 5. I think that would surprise some people. I know that there are some people that think that he could be like a round 3, round 4 guy. But we've seen quarterbacks like this fall at times. So I think that Pratt round 5 makes more sense.
All right, next up, we've got Arizona's tackle Jordan Morgan in round 3. He had a tough day today. It looked like, just one practice, but he struggled today. Or
another round 1 mock draft. He was like in top 15 of round 1 mocks in like from the spring all the way up through the fall.
Athletic
cooled off a little bit.
Yeah. Or Rice wide receiver Luke McCaffrey in round 5. He is the brother of Christian McCaffrey. Would the Eagles dare?
The son of Ed.
That's right. Ed Kratz?
Yeah. You said you said 5th round?
Round 3 for Jordan Morgan, round 5 for Luke McCaffrey.
I think it's probably more likely round 5 for McCaffrey. Jordan Morgan, I think that round 3 makes sense for him, but I think there's been so much buzz about people liking him in round 1 that, okay, like he'll be value in round 2, that round 3 almost feels like he probably wouldn't end up there. Although I agree, the tape can be up and down. And so I would say that Luke McCaffrey ending up in round 5 is more likely.
Okay, another wide receiver now, another white wide receiver, Michigan's Roman Wilson in round 2. Roman Wilson's had a good week so far.
Yes.
Or Rutgers corner, another brother of an NFL player, Max Melton, the Rutgers corner in round 5.
I'm going to say Roman Wilson in round 2. It's a small sample size because they didn't throw the ball a ton at Michigan. But this kid is quick in and out of breaks. He's a really sharp route runner, one of the best route runners here. And he made an outstanding catch at the end of practice today, 1-on-1 against Quinyon Mitchell, who's been one of the best defensive players here. I would say Roman Wilson round 2. That would not shock me. We've seen guys from the Senior Bowl go round 2 just this past year and go and find success. Rashee Rice, the kid, the Michigan State kid that Green Bay took.
Jaden Reed.
Yeah, Jaden Reed, thank you. You go back years and years and years. There's a line of those guys coming from Mobile, going into the second round and finding success. And I could see Roman Wilson following that path.
Among them.
Deebo Samuel, no question.
Speaking of, a South Carolina wide receiver is up next. Xavier Leggett.
Yeah.
In round 3.
Okay.
Or TCU offensive lineman Brandon Coleman in round 5. Leggett's a bit of a bigger wide receiver. He's not the smoothest mover.
No. He was getting comparisons to DK Metcalf from a lot of the media folks. And round 1 buzz from some. And I would say that we can probably safely assume that's probably not going to happen, especially what we've seen from this week. He has not had a dominant week of practice. He's fought the ball a little bit. I would agree he's not the smoothest mover. He needs to get a little bit better as a separator. And so round 3 for a guy with that size, his ability to be a ball winner, I could see that. I think that's probably the more likely scenario.
Okay. Next up, Penn State edge Adisa Isaac in round 3.
Okay.
And this edge group seems to be a little bit down, right? Or
in Mobile or just in general, you mean?
You tell me.
I think that the group overall is pretty good. In Mobile, I would actually agree that it's probably a little bit below expectation for a normal Senior Bowl.
And it's maybe missing, the whole group as a whole is missing a couple like top 10 guys.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Okay. I mean, Leatu Latu is a legit round 1 guy, and he's here. Actually, huge credit to him for being here. And I think also the edge group also doesn't look great overall because it's going up against a really good offensive tackle group. So that doesn't help things.
Okay, so we've got Adisa Isaac in round 3 or New Hampshire running back Dylan Laub in round 5.
Okay, this is on the nose for both guys. I'm going to go – this is a tough one. So Laub is from New Hampshire, small school, great receiver. He had 12 catches for like 170 yards against Central Michigan this year. He can be used. The week after that had 33 carries. Okay, so you talk about like his like versatility as a weapon is impressive. But Isaac is a guy that it was all Big Ten this year. he's a power leverage, like win at the point of attack, kind of a gritty player that way. He's not a superb athlete. He was getting some round one buzz from media types in the fall. I don't know that he's not that level of player in my opinion,
he's
especially
5'250".
Yeah, exactly. Yep, he's that kind of like rocked up base end. But I could see him going round 3, and Laub I could definitely see going round 5. But I think coming from the lower level of competition with a niche skill set, I think Isaac is probably the more of the lock to go in the 3rd round.
Okay, next up we've got someone who you said a potential sleeper for round 1, but we've got him as a round 2 peg here, and that is Ohio State's Michael Hall.
Yep.
Or Notre Dame's Marist Liufau in round 5.
Almost got it. That was I believe it's Marist Liufau.
Liufau.
Yeah, and he's an interesting player as a linebacker.
You use a loofah?
No, I'm not a loofah guy.
What do you do?
I just go
straight hand
meat hooks. Yep.
Wow. Okay. Respect. I mean, sometimes you have no choice, but it's not my number one option.
Yeah, it's trust.
It used to be a loofah guy in the old back in the day. I think it was the initial season of Birds with Friends. A listener said that the loofah is not as clean as it looks. You go with the silicone scrub. So that's what we have in the rotation now.
I haven't even thought about that, and but that person is 1,000% right. That is more of a reason to not go with the loofah. That said, Marist Liufau, he's an interesting player. He was not on scouts' radar at all coming into the year and had a huge season. Really rangy player, offers versatility as a blitzer.
They list him as an edge, but he's been just playing.
Yeah, he's an off-ball. I think that might have been a typo. Okay. From whoever's doing the graphics. He's a linebacker all day, and he's been working with the off-ball guys in practice. So I think when you look at him, I think you said round 5.
Yes.
Yeah. And then take
me
back to the first one.
2. Michael Hall in round 2.
Michael Hall round 2. Ooh. I think Liufau could go earlier than 5. So I'm going to go Michael Hall at 2. We'll talk about Hall when we get to the second round. I really like Michael Hall.
All right. Tennessee quarterback Joe Milton in round 5.
Right.
Or Kentucky corner Andrew Phillips. Andrew, Andru, fun spelling, in round 5 as well.
Phillips is a 2-year starter at Kentucky and has basically not had like any production at all. He's had no picks, a handful of PBUs, no sacks. I think like 1 TFL, like just the ball production overall just has not quite been there, but he's got traits and that he's like flashed here.
He's flashed a little bit.
Yeah, he has. That said, I think with the lack of production, him falling to round 5, I think is a suitable outcome. Joe Milton is a wild card, and Jim Nagy, is after Milton committed to the game. He went on Twitter, and I think it's a valid point. And look, they're not the same level of prospect, but when you look at Joe Milton, who is 6'5", 230, he's an athletic freak, and he can throw the ball through a brick wall. He's got an extremely strong arm. He's got all the physical tools. Only a 1-year starter. Started his career at Michigan and was given the reins as a sophomore. And he got benched after like 2 games and then ended up transferring a couple years the next year, went to Tennessee, sat behind Hendon Hooker for 2 years, and then took over as a starter. And the production was solid, but nothing crazy. But the point that Jim made was if Anthony Richardson goes in the 4th round, goes the 4th overall pick, like what does that mean for Joe Milton? Like he's not going that high, right? Because Richardson was so good last year. But does that mean 3rd round? Like, could he go 4th round? The tape, I would say, doesn't show a quarterback that way. And I think that even here, it's been a little bit up and down. The accuracy has been a little bit scattershot throughout the week for Joe Milton. He completed a pass in 7-on-7 yesterday, the day 1. It was the last completion of the day in team period. And he proceeded to do a standing backflip, like showing off that athleticism. But I think I got to go the other way. I think round 5, it might be a little bit rich. I could see him falling into round 6, round 7.
Okay. Next up, Utah safety Sione Vaki in round 5, or the aforementioned Toledo corner Quinyon Mitchell, who has just been nails throughout the week so far in round 1.
All right, we're going to talk. It's going to be Mitchell. He's going to advance. We'll talk about him later. So I'll just really quickly hit on Vaki. Redshirt, or actually a true sophomore safety from Utah, but he's more than 3 years removed from high school, and so he was able to declare for the draft as a true sophomore. Only a 1-year starter. Kind of honestly, very similar to Sidney Brown. I would say like a less polished version of Sidney Brown. in that he's like heat-seeking missile. He's built very similarly to Sidney Brown, probably not as stacked, like not as thick, but that same kind of compact frame. You want him playing downhill, like go find the football. Like that's when he's at his best. I think that Sidney was a better player, and Sidney ended up going third round. I don't think that Vaki is quite to that level. The one wrinkle with Vaki, and we saw it today, is that he had, I believe it was like 75 or 73 carries as a running back this year, played both ways for Utah, and ran routes today during one-on-ones. And so, and from what I heard, it was when we were watching the O-line, D-line together. From what I heard, he didn't look half bad for a safety running routes down at the Senior Bowl. And so there's that little wrinkle there with him. But no, it's Mitchell all day round one.
Very funny comment from Robin, who says doing a backflip after you complete a pass feels like the apotheosis of act like you've been there before. First of all, great use of apotheosis.
Yes.
Second of all, I do like imagine like running a 2-minute drill, but he's got to do a backflip as he's going up to call the plays. Very funny.
I feel like after we finish this pod, that might be something I try and do onto the bed behind me.
Very impressive. Okay, a matchup of round 5 options here: Mississippi State linebacker Nathaniel Watson or a great full sentence all-star here, Virginia State corner Willie Drew. Both round 5.
Both round 5. Willie Drew and you said Nathaniel Watson.
Willie Drew, a beautiful picture.
Yeah. Nathaniel Watson, I think, could go earlier. It wouldn't shock me if he went day 2. He's been really disruptive. He's with that second practice, so it's been with the American team, and it's been, again, a little bit of a slog. That defense has been all over the offense. I mean, they have not let them get off the ground in the one team period we have watched every single day with that group. And Watson has been at the forefront of a lot of those plays. You see him chasing plays down to the flat. He is a great blitzer and has been extremely productive blitzing from depth, blitzing off the edge. I think there's some Michael Kendricks there. There's some Frankie Louvu there, who's been a good player for the Panthers the last couple of years. But he's a little bit unrefined too. He's not like a pure read it out linebacker. Like he's not that kind of guy. So it wouldn't shock me if he got
a poor man's Willie Gay.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Let's throw then take us to Willie Drew at Virginia State, who moves pretty well. Started his career at James Madison and then went down, transferred down.
Wasn't Drew Willie a guy?
Yeah, Drew Willie was oh man. Probably like one of the biggest heartbreaks of my football career, of my professional career in football. Drew Willie hitting Naaman Roosevelt on a Hail Mary, University of Buffalo, over the Temple Owls up at UB Stadium. Just a dagger. It was just terrible. Hail Mary, final play. Drew Willie, the quarterback, who I think had a cup of tea with the Ravens in the NFL.
That sounds right.
But Willie Drew, I don't think. I think that he's less likely to go round 5.
Oh, so this is Nathaniel Watson.
Oh, actually, no. Yeah, I mean, Watson, I think, actually goes earlier. So, yeah, Willie Drew advances. But we're going to get him out here. Just because you made the Drew Willie comparison, we got to get him out here.
So we're sticking with Nathaniel Watson.
No, Willie Drew advances, but next round he's out.
Okay. Okay. Star-studded matchup here. The only matchup of first-round picks.
Oh.
UCLA's. How is it pronounced?
Laiatu
Latu. Yes. And I'm going round 1 trade up. So they're gonna have to move up for him, a trade down for BYU's Kingsley Suamataia.
All right, so a team more likely to trade up for Laiatu Latu, or is a team more likely to trade down for Kingsley? I think it's more likely that a team would trade down for Kingsley and trade down and get Kingsley Suamataia
because it's such a stacked group.
Yes, and with Laiatu Latu's injury history, he had a neck injury at Washington that forced him to medically retire, could not get cleared, and he ended up, basically dropping out of football for a season.
Kind of crazy. It reminds you of Jalen Phillips, right?
No question. And he is a very, very similar player, like skill set wise, body type wise, is very, very similar player to Jalen Phillips. I'll say I love Latu on film. I actually like him a lot more than I liked Jalen Phillips. But I think from a body type and skill set standpoint, they are very similar. I love Latu the player, but there's a huge risk there involved. So trading up to get Latu on top of that risk, I think would be that's a double down of a risk. I don't know that a team would be willing to take.
Okay, let's see if we can get through the first round within an hour. We've got five more matchups.
We'll buzz through. It'll be fast. We got this.
Oh, once you get, I mean, I say this every time. The first round is more matchups than the rest of the thing combined. We've already talked about the players. We'll go quicker. I can step in and do a little bit more Eagles spin on the nature of things. UConn edge Eric Watts in round 5, or Arkansas center Bo Limmer in round 3. No, this is a different Bo spelling. This is Beaux.
And our first Bo of the show.
Yes, and
there
unfortunately,
Bo Blade.
Three Bows here, 3 different spellings.
Well,
Bo Blade, the Maryland safety, did not make the Quacketology. Right, 4 including me. There's also Bo Brack from the PHNX.
Oh, I didn't know that. All right. Well, all right. So Bo Limmer, round 3. Eric Watts, round 5.
Yes.
I love Eric Watts. He's awesome. He's to me, like, he's going to go day 2. He's a big body defensive end from UConn. Explosive, violent player. Played D tackle last year and then moved to DN this past season. The production has been up and down, but the traits are outstanding. And I think that teams are going to say, like, this is a guy that at worst can be like a 3rd round demon for us. Like, and we kind of move him around. There was that kind of player is in high demand around the NFL, even as raw as he can be, because he's not a finished product as a rusher yet. I saw him put who was the offensive tackle in one-on-ones. I mean, he went bull rush, like long arm, and just put him right to just completely put him into the dirt and got home. So probably I think Watts falling to round 5 would be surprising. So we're going to go with Bo Limmer round 3.
All right, North Carolina linebacker Cedric Gray, who's flashed a little bit this week in round 5.
Round 5.
Or Florida State tight end Jaheim Bell in round 5.
Ooh. I think Jaheim Bell could go earlier just because he's like a really athletic, explosive Swiss Army knife. Undersized tight end. He's built more like a fullback, H-back type, and he's got speed go down the seam. I mean, he's really explosive and was moved all around the formation. He got carries as a running back. He's been used as a lead fullback. He is a definite Swiss Army knife type of player, but I think he could go earlier.
Okay. Penn State corner Kalen King in round 3, or Georgia State linebacker John Trey Hunter in round 5.
All right, so Kalen King has been in first-round mocks really since like his sophomore year. Was a true freshman starter for Penn State, and he's gotten beaten up a little bit, I think, by the community just in terms of this past season. And it wasn't his best year. He's gotten knocked. He gave up some catches, some big plays to Marvin Harrison. He had a couple penalties this year. I would say, like, Marvin Harrison tends to do that to people. And so, you don't want to knock guys too bad for losing to an elite talent. I do think Kalen King is a good player. I think he's probably unlikely to go round 1, but round 3, I think would be surprising to me still, even though he's gotten knocked a bit. So I will go away from Kalen King and we'll go with the other option here. John Trey Hunter
in round 5 moves on. All right. Utah safety Cole Bishop in round 5, or Kansas offensive lineman Dominic Puny also in round 5.
I think more likely Puny in round 5, just because of the depth of the offensive line class. I think in a typical year, he probably has a better chance of going round 3, round 4. I thought Puny had a good day today, and talking with people that watched even more, they kind of agreed with that sentiment. I think Bishop could go round 3, round 4. He's one of my favorite safeties here. I said that earlier. I think is one of those like do everything types, like a pure, like interchangeable player that just doesn't have like an A+ trait. He's not like super explosive. He's not super big. He's not super strong, right? But check all the boxes. He was a true junior captain, got guys lined up, was kind of like the captain of that defense. So I like a Cole Bishop. I don't think he falls to round 5. So I think we'll go with Puny here.
All right, last one of the first round. We close it out with a quarterback matchup. Knicks and Knicks. Michael Penix.
Yep.
In round 2, or Bo Nix in round 2 as well.
Oh, okay. I was just to see if you're going to do round 1 for either. I think more likely Bo Nix round 2. Penix, the film can be really, really good at times. I just think that it's going to be tough for teams to get through the injury stuff. It was the first 4 years, I believe, of his career at Indiana, all ended in injury. He's been mostly healthy last 2 seasons for Washington, but even still, like, was banged up at times, like in game. And like we saw that in the national title game against Michigan, right? So, I think that is going to be alarming for some. Bo Nix, if you had told me 2 years ago that we were going to be talking about Bo Nix as a second-round pick, I would have said you're crazy.
He doesn't look like a second-round pick to me, just here. But
yeah,
again,
but I'll tell you, man, like he's on film, he was extremely accurate, operated that offense extremely well. And I think a lot of people will say, "Oh, the scheme." He's played for 4 different offensive coordinators in the last 4 years, and 2 in the last 2 at Oregon. So it hasn't just been, like he went to Oregon and in that system he tore it up. Like they had to get a completely new play caller, a new system this past year, and he continued that level of efficiency. I've got some of like the accuracy numbers and like adjusted completion percentage numbers on him, and they're like through the roof, like better than any quarterback we've seen.
But isn't it like a tiny ADOT? Isn't he just throwing checkdowns?
A lot of screens. There's a lot of screens in the offense, but even taking that stuff away, you still see that show up on third down. His adjusted completion percentage on third down extremely high, and they're not throwing a lot of screens on third down in that offense. I think when you look at his body of work, Dan Jeremiah had him in the top 15 with his first mock. He had him go to the Saints, I believe, at 14. I think that would be a little surprising, but I could definitely see round 2 for Bo Nix.
What do you know about a Jeff Hafley?
I like a Jeff Hafley. He was Darrelle Revis's DB coach at Pitt.
He just announced that he's going to become the Packers defensive coordinator.
Wow, there you go. See, and you're going to see more of this with college coaches jumping in the NFL. It's just going to happen with the landscape right now. I like that. I like that hire for Green Bay.
Is he the one who replaced he who shall not be named?
Yeah.
Or was there somebody in between?
I think there was somebody in between. Yes, there was somebody in between.
F that guy.
I'll let you say that.
Yeah.
Hafley's a good coach. Yeah, he's a good coach.
Okay. All right, we're moving on to the second round.
All right, here we go.
This is a good time capsule. If you don't know these guys, you can save this episode. You replay it in a couple months, see how it all turned out. Okay. Chris Braswell, the Alabama edge in round 2, or Ryan Flournoy, the Southeast Missouri wide receiver in round 5.
All right, we talked about both these guys already. I think it's more likely. I feel better about Braswell in round 2 than I do Flournoy in round 5 because he could go round 6 and I wouldn't be shocked. So I'm going to go Braswell round 2.
Okay, Brandon Dorless, the Oregon defensive lineman. You have a thing for Oregon defensive linemen that has become a thing in round 3, or Tanner Bortolini in round 5.
I also have he is my type. I told you right away, like he reminds me of Milton Williams, and I loved Milton Williams coming out. He's just extremely disruptive, man. Like he's so fast off the ball. He came in at under 280, which I was surprised. I thought he'd lean more into like, all right, let me add weight and make sure that I'm a true D tackle. We'll see what he comes in next month in Indianapolis, but I'll go Dorless round 3 over Bortolini round 5.
Okay, Brevin Spanford, the Minnesota tight end in round 5, or Keaton Oladapo, the Oregon State safety, also in round 5.
I'm going to go Brevin Spanford round 5. I think as a pure like blocking tight end, like not offering a ton as a pass catcher, I think that profile fit as a 6th-year senior. Could have come out last year. Going to surprise some people going back. I'm going to go Spanford round 5.
Okay, Tavondre Sweat, the Texas defensive tackle in round 2, or Javon Bullard, the Georgia safety in round 2.
Sweat has gotten some round 1 buzz. I don't think he's as good a prospect as Jordan Davis was. And obviously, a big part of Jordan Davis' profile was that he went to the combine and just completely shattered everything as a guy that size. I don't know that Sweat's going to do that.
How does he compare to like a Travis Jones?
I think Jones was even more nimble than Sweat. Now Sweat. I mean, he the first day was a little rough, a little bit of a feeling out period. Today, I thought he was really good. He had some really good reps today. For a guy that big, he plays really low to the ground, and that showed up today. He is really strong. He won the Outland Trophy this year. I mean, he was one of the best players in college football. I'll go with him round 2.
Okay, next up, help me on Fuaga's first. Taliese?
Taliese, I believe.
Taliese, like Khaleesi.
Taliese, yes, correct.
Not like gay Taliese. Okay. Taliese Fuaga in round 1.
Oh, you know what? It is Taliese. Taliese Fuaga.
Taliese.
Taliese Fuaga.
Okay. Taliese
Taliese
Fuaga in round 1, or Ben Sinnott in round 5, the Kansas State tight end.
Round 1. That's easy. Yeah, Fuaga round 1. Sinnott could surprise and go, round 4, mess around there. I think Fuaga round 1's a lock.
Okay. Well, as we move on, we'll get a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll narrow down focus.
Yeah. Western Michigan edge Marshawn Kneeland in round 5, or USC wide receiver Brendan Rice in round 5.
Good one. I want to say, I'll say Kneeland round 5, because Rice.
Someone's going to talk themselves into Jerry Rice.
You could definitely see that, where Brendan Rice, climbs up and he goes a little bit earlier than expected. And look, I could also see like there are guys with that profile that surprise and go later than expected too. So I'll go Kneeland round 5.
Dwayne Carter, the Duke defensive tackle in round 3, or it's never risky if it's fisky in round 3 as well. Defensive tackle matchup.
Very interesting one, because both guys I think are kind of your prototypical 3 technique players, and have some limitations. I think Fiskey's more athletic. I think Carter's got the more traditional body type. Both are going to be fine from an intangible standpoint. Both are pretty clean from a medical standpoint. This is a tough one. This is a coin flip.
Let's work this out from an Eagles perspective. Then this one, who is providing a skill set that the Eagles do not have more.
They're both so similar is the thing. I would say, Carter is probably more, just because I think the length for Fiskey, he's got 31-inch arms. I have the numbers available, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to go look them up. That's like sub 10th percentile of arm length for drafted D tackles. It's extremely low arm. So I would say let's go Carter here for that sake. Okay,
here's a fun one that I can take. Because it's a matchup of round 1 offensive linemen, Tyler Guyton and Jackson Powers Johnson, both guys who, every expectation will be a first-round pick.
Yep.
I cannot imagine them using a first-round pick on an interior offensive lineman at this stage in the game. I mean, unless they're penciling in Tyler Steen as a right tackle moving forward, which would be a surprise, whereas Tyler Guyton feels like exactly the kind of player that they would be interested in as a get him in Stoutland U, develop him, and he's got the tools to literally be the next Lane Johnson.
From what you've seen this week, who do you like more?
Well, part of it is because there just haven't been as much of that afternoon, those afternoon practices. I mean, Guyton looks to me more like a 22 overall worthy pick, whereas Powers Johnson looks really good, but am I using that early of a pick on an interior offensive lineman? Probably not.
I made this point. I'm going to pull Zach here. I tweeted last night that the NFL let Creed Humphrey fall to the second round, and I was shocked by that. I thought that Creed Humphrey was a first-round pick all day long, just because he checked all the boxes, and I didn't think that teams would repeat that. Now, that said, Creed Humphrey was like a 4-year starter for Oklahoma. Jackson Powers Johnson, just 1-year starter at Oregon. So will that small
Which is interesting for an interior offensive lineman. Yeah.
Yeah, that's important, especially if you're going to be the center, like calling the shots. Now, that said, like he has also played right guard here at times and has been really good there too. So, if you might not view him as a center, maybe you view him as a guard at 334. Like, I don't think he's got a body type that says, oh, he's center only. That's going to be an interesting one.
Okay. Patrick Paul in round 3, the Houston long-armed offensive lineman, or Michael Pratt, the Tulane quarterback in round 5.
Ooh, this is a good one. I think Pratt may be more likely round 5, just because Patrick Paul has gotten enough round 1 buzz from like the true influencers in the mock draft universe. I will say that he is more likely to be in round 2 than Pratt to jump up.
All right, next up, we've got the B-Rabbit matchup. Luke McCaffrey against Roman Wilson. McCaffrey in round 5, Roman Wilson in round 2.
I like Roman Wilson round 2. We talked about his skill set earlier. Let's go Roman Wilson there.
South Carolina wide receiver Xavier Leggett in round 3, or Penn State edge Adisa Isaac in round 3.
I like Isaac in round 3. He watching him, I was like, this guy is going to be like a late day 2 type of player. So that's right in line with that.
Michael Hall, the flexible defensive lineman from Ohio State in round 2, or Andrew Phillips, the Kentucky corner in round 5.
I mentioned earlier to you today that I thought Hall is like the possible round 1 dark horse that we aren't talking about enough. Hasn't played a ton. Only a redshirt sophomore, and was kind of a rotational starter. I think he only started like 7 games this year. He was kind of banged up a little bit. 6'2", 280. So built like a pure 3 technique. or maybe even like a base end, kind of what we were talking about with Dorless. And then you turn on the film. He's extremely violent against the run. He's got outstanding power to push the pocket against the pass. We saw that. Honestly, the only rep I've seen Jackson Powers Johnson lose all week so far through 2 days has been Michael Hall pushing him back in the pocket. And Powers Johnson kind of anchored late, but that was the most I've seen anybody get inside the pads and move JPJ at all this week. So to me, I think you look at Michael Hall at that size, to be as quick as he is, as explosive he is, as powerful as he is, it wouldn't shock me if he snuck into round 1, but I think it's safe with the body of work and the overall sample size to say round 2.
I am trying to, I fell in love with Perrion Winfrey here a couple years ago because he was just dominating practices, like exactly the kind of player that I like, a penetrating defensive tackle. But it was like not what was on tape, right? He was a very hit or miss player, and it turned out that he was, not ready for prime time in the NFL. So I'm trying to be guarded against like the full flashes of a defensive lineman, but Michael Hall has looked pretty good to me.
Yeah, I like Michael Hall. I watched him last week for the first time. It was literally one of the I probably watched him on like Tuesday or Wednesday, and thought like, oh, this guy is he's got the goods. I'm excited to see how he tests next week. I think the buzz could continue building for him.
All right, you already said that Drew Willie is going to be eliminated here, and he will be easily eliminated by Quinyon Mitchell in round 1.
Round
so
1, easy.
That's an easy one. Kingsley Suamataia as a trade down in round 1, or Bo Limmer, the Arkansas center, in round 3.
I really like Limmer. He was actually the last player that I watched before coming down here. I watched him on Friday afternoon. I think he's a really good zone blocking center. He's played some guards. There's position flex there. He's really tough. He's had a good week this week. He had one bad rep this week or today against Tavondre Sweat, we talked about earlier. But I don't think I can advance Limmer here. Let's move on.
Okay, Cedric Gray, the UNC linebacker, in round 5, or John Trey Hunter, the Georgia State linebacker, in round 5. A little round 5 linebacker matchup.
Yeah, I think
Nate Gary special.
Yeah, I think Hunter more likely to fall further than that. So I'm going to go with Cedric Gray here.
All right, we close out round 2 with Dominic Puny in round 5, or Bo Nix in round 2. The Eagles are not drafting Bo Nix in round 2.
Yeah, but you know me, I'm taking it from like a league.
Yeah, I know you are, but I can step in.
I think Nix in round 2 seems more likely. I think Nix for a team, yeah.
For a team.
For a team.
Okay. All right. Sweet 16 time.
I'll help you in the next one. He'll go out in the next round.
Chris Braswell in round 2, or Brandon Dorless in round 3. I would say, a round 2 edge from Alabama feels pretty down the middle for the Eagles. Whereas a round 3, like, is Dorless going to be there at the end of round 3, comp pick wise? I would lean Braswell, but you could convince me otherwise.
Yeah, and I think that Dorless, like, if Dorless went 35th, like, that wouldn't shock me. Whereas I think Braswell, that's right on the fairway, him in the second round.
Okay. Brevin Spanford, the blocking tight end from Minnesota, in round 5, or Tavondre Sweat in round 2. I would say, like, are you using a round 2 pick after you just used a first-round pick on Jalen Carter and a first-round pick on Jordan Davis? Probably not, but that's how they build things. Whereas I think I can use a 5th-round pick in a blocking tight end in Brevin Spanford. They do need some depth there.
Yep. I do think overall, it goes back to the Bo Nix thing from like a minute ago. I think Tavondre Sweat in round 2 is much more likely, just like in terms of like range of outcomes. Like Spanford, like, could go in the 7th round, could go in the 3rd or 4th round. Like, I think that Sweat in round 2 just makes more sense. We're talking like pure player value.
Okay. Taliese Simpson, Lisa Fuaga in round 1.
Okay.
Or Marshawn Nealand in round 5. Now, if we're just doing down the middle, of course, Fuaga is going to go in round 1, it feels like.
Yes. And he Dan Jeremiah had him in the top. I think he had him 4th overall. If I remember right, he had him as the 1st or 2nd tackle off the board. Okay. I don't know that he's going to go that high, but I know Mel Kiper had him high in his mock draft. Yeah, I think you got to go Fuaga round 1, and we'll narrow down. We'll specify as we get a little bit.
Okay, I think we could do the same thing here with Dwayne Carter in round 3 against Tyler Guyton in round 1.
Feel good about that.
Guyton's going round 1.
Guyton moving on.
Okay.
This would be fun because I know the first time we did this, it wasn't like a lot of first round players that we were necessarily talking about. So this year,
although the first time we did it, I believe Garrett Bradbury in round 3 won, and then he went in the first round or something like that.
Right. Shows what we know.
Okay, Michael Pratt, the Tulane quarterback in round 5, or Roman Wilson, the Michigan wide receiver in round 2. I think the same thing on the variants here, probably, right?
Yeah, probably. I don't think it's like a lock that Roman Wilson goes round 2. I think he's kind of danced his way to this point, but I think he's going to advance.
Okay. Adisa Isaac, the Penn State edge in round 3, or Michael Hall, the Ohio State defensive lineman in round 2.
Michael Hall, moving on.
Okay. Quinyon Mitchell in round 1, or Kingsley Suamataia as a round 1 trade down.
Oh, but on the trade down. All right. So that's like, it wouldn't surprise me if a team moved up for a Kingsley Suamataia, a 21-year-old tackle with those traits. He was like top 3.
Now, at this point, we're basically saying he's going to go after 23.
Right.
Or Mitchell goes around 22 to a team who's picking at 22.
Right. This is tough. Let's talk position depth, right? Position scarcity. Quinyon Mitchell, potentially the first or second corner off the board. Kingsley Suamataia, anywhere from the third to the 7th. Third to the 6th or 7th tackle off the board. And so if you're talking pure numbers, you feel like Mitchell probably has the better chance to go early. Is the senior Toledo corner going to go ahead of the 21-year-old BYU Penny Sewell's cousin offensive tackle? This is a tough one.
I will take this one from the Eagles' perspective. Okay. I like Quinyon Mitchell. I think he's awesome from what I've seen.
He's been awesome.
But I would be surprised if, given his history, Howie Roseman uses a first-round pick on a senior corner from a smaller school.
From the MAC, yep.
So I will move on with Suamataia. And then finally in Sweet 16, Cedric Gray, the UNC linebacker in round 5, or Bo Nix in round 2. They're not taking Bo Nix in round 2.
So Cedric Gray?
Cedric Gray makes it to the Elite 8.
Wow.
All right.
I told you I'd do the favor of Bo Nix not making it, so we're going to go Cedric Gray.
Okay. Chris Braswell, round 2, or Tavondre Sweat, round 2. I will take this one as well. If they're using a second-round pick on a defensive lineman, I just think it's so much more likely to be an edge than an interior player. And
even like team agnostic from my point of view, like I would say it's more likely Braswell went in round 2 than Sweat. I could say a team could fall in love with a Tavondre Sweat, especially with all the accolades this year. Because the film was good. That can be a skill set that's hard to find. If he goes and he shocks the combine, like he could go 28th overall, and that wouldn't be surprising.
Okay, now this one is very fun.
Okay,
and you don't have to be about the Eagles, but Stoutland's preferences. He's looking for outliers. We've got a head-to-head Taliese Fuaga versus Tyler Guyton, round 1. You don't have to say who you think would be the pick, but who is more in the style of a Stoutland type player.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard Jeff Stoutland say like he looks to the unusual, right? Yes. The guys that have those unique traits, and I think that Tyler Guyton has the traits are there more so with him than with Fuaga. Fuaga's a better player right now. Like you got to play tomorrow. You want Fuaga. You want to play. Who's the better tackle 3 years from now? You're probably having a different discussion. And you could argue either way in that discussion. By the way. Yeah, me personally, based off my evaluation too, I would have Guyton personally. So I'm going to go Guyton.
He would be higher on your board.
Yes, me personally.
All right, Roman Wilson round 2 or Michael Hall round 2.
I got to go Michael Hall round 2. And again, I think there's a chance that he could go 1, but I think it's a better chance that he would be a round 2 guy.
Okay, and then Suamataia, round 1 trade down, or Cedric Gray round 5. I think we got to go Suamataia.
Let's move Kingsley on, and we'll save that discussion for another day.
Okay, final 4. Congratulations to all the participants. Chris Braswell, round 2, the Alabama edge, or Tyler Guyton, round 1.
I think you go with the variance of Braswell. Like he's the kind of athlete that could tear it up next month in Indy, and could climb his way into round 1. So let's go with Kingsley. Moving on.
All right. No, Guyton. This is Guyton.
Oh, yeah.
The other side is Michael Hall, round 2 against Suamataia,
Man,
23 to 32.
I think Kingsley is a round one guy. I know that he's not by the way, like he's not universally seen that way.
He was not in Jeremiah's top 50.
That's what I mean. He is not universally seen that way. So this could just be me, being crazy. But I'm going to go Kingsley round one over Michael Hall round two.
Well, that would lead us to believe that we've got a head-to-head Tyler Guyton, Kingsley, Suamataia. Wow. It feels to me like this is Tyler Guyton. Does he make it to 22 overall? Is he too talented?
That is the question.
To be a sit there at 22 and take him, or does he rise too much and Suamataia becomes more likely because at 22 you don't have a ton of mid-round volume. You can add some picks. You move down 4 spots and take him instead.
For the record, Daniel Jeremiah did his first round mock draft last week. His first one. The pick for the Eagles at 22 was Tyler Guyton. And as you mentioned, Kingsley was not in that mock draft, and you said he was not in his top 50 that came out. I
don't believe he was in the top 50.
Yeah,
I would if I had you were saying an over under at 21 and a half for where Tyler Guyton goes, I would bet on him going sooner than that.
Yep.
I think just because of the traits. But if he's there, boy, does that feel like an Eagles pick.
Now, are we sticking with the Kingsley trade down?
Yes.
So is Guyton more likely to be there than a Kingsley trade down? This is what you get paid the big bucks for.
This is what it's all about. This is the championship. This is why these two teams have made it this far.
The good thing is that if we whatever we decide on here, we could just get into a time machine and come back and change our pick later.
What would you use the time machine for, Fran?
I'd probably change some opinions on some players coming out, maybe like a quarterback from Texas Tech or or
a Nathan Peterman.
What's that? Yeah, there's a long list of ones that I would change.
Here's my take.
Yeah,
I think somebody was. Did I say this on the show or just in conversation with somebody? I think it was Robert Mays who tweeted that the Patrick Mahomes pick is the second best draft pick in NFL history.
Right.
I'm assuming he's thinking Tom Brady. I think it's a much better pick than Tom Brady. Value wise, but if you think he's Tom Brady, you don't wait until round 6, obviously.
Unless you're Bill Polian, and then
they passed on him a bunch of times. Right. I think having the cojones to trade up for Patrick Mahomes and believe in your evaluation.
Yes.
I think that's the best pick in NFL history.
Question. Yeah, I would agree. With that. That doesn't help me with this. It's like
saying the Eagles Jason Kelce pick. Great pick, but lucky.
Sure.
I would say that Lane was a better pick, or Fletcher Cox was a better pick.
Right. Yeah, there's a difference between best pick and most valuable pick.
Yes,
yes. You're getting the best value. All right. I feel like Guyton's probably the chalk answer, right? Because I think that if you're looking at Kingsley, there's the variance of opinions on it, and it's not just he's not in Daniel Jeremiah's top 50. I know there are others that say Fran, you're really high on Kingsley, and I am. So let's while I do think he's going to go first round when it's all said and done, just because of the traits and the profile, I think Guyton is the more surefire lock for the first round. So let's go with Guyton. Right, not Jalen.
In the great tradition of Garrett Bradbury, and I can't remember who it was 2 years ago.
I can't remember who the second one was either.
We congratulate Tyler Guyton on winning the Quacketology. I don't believe that we have ever had a Senior Bowl Quacketology winner end up being an Eagles pick, but we'll see if Tyler Guyton or Jalen Guyton or AJ Guyton can, buck the trend.
What is behind you?
Good question. It looks like my hair, right?
Yeah, I look like a Dr. Seuss throughout the show. I have no idea what
I look like a Dr. Seuss character. Yeah.
Look like you're from Whoville.
Nice little plant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. Well, thank you, Fran. What a delight. What a pleasure.
Yeah, it was. It's always fun. And look, it was one of the best weeks of the year. I love coming to the Senior Bowl. Obviously it's for good reason that we were not here last year with the Eagles going to the Super Bowl. So I missed 2 in the last 11 years, 12 years.
Julia, nicely done. A feather in the cap. Fantastic.
Very, very good. No, it's a great week. So we got one more practice tomorrow on Thursday. Flying back home on Friday, and getting ready for Indianapolis.
Boy, will your arms be tired.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll stop by your Airbnb and pick up some of those feathers.
Exactly. All right, Fran Duffy, where can everybody read you, watch you, listen to you, smell you?
The Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. That's where we've been doing obviously all Eagles talk, but then also all of our draft conversations. We'll be doing that over on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. So get that wherever podcasts can be found, and we'll see if I do some written work. It'll be over on PhiladelphiaEagles.com.
And at Eagles XOs on Twitter.
Of course. Well, cannot forget.
Zach will be back in the saddle with Handsome Rich tomorrow at noon. Look forward to that. And then Zach and I back together on Friday, maybe with a special guest. We're efforting on that front. Exciting stuff. Thank you to everybody for listening and watching. Remember to rate and review and subscribe and all that good stuff. Hit the like button. Keep this episode in a tab on a different window and revisit it in a couple months. We'll see how it goes. And that's all we got. So thank you to Julia. Thank you to everybody else. Thank you to Brenna. Shout out to Brenna. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. For Fran and Zach and Rich and Julia and Brenna, we appreciate it. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.